Hello, this is the Cartoon Koala, and it would appear that Halloween is upon us once again, a season commemorating all that is terrifying in this world. And what better way for me to celebrate than by hopping on an ancient trend and doing a video discussing the things that scared me in my younger years. Something that I've actually wanted to do for a long while and have tried in the past, but only now have I been able to complete it. While it might seem overdone, there's a reason so many YouTubers have taken a stab at this. It is an interesting discussion and something we all experience differently. I myself was a pretty weird kid when it came to the stuff that really got to me versus the stuff that didn't. A lot of spooky kids movies and episodes didn't actually bother me that much. The few things that really got to me, I don't think I've seen anyone else bring up. So this should be quite different from the other videos on this same topic. Without further ado, here are my personal top 5 childhood scares. Watch at your own risk.
Come, let's tiptoe into the dark. One good scare ought to do ya.
For number 5, instead of choosing some random TV or movie moment, I'll just reserve it for all my internet-based scares, most of which come from when I was a bit older than the other 4. That being said, the first one of these actually kind of doubles as a scary TV moment. So as you may know from watching some of my other videos, when I was really young, I wasn't allowed to watch much Cartoon Network. Regardless, it was still one of my go-to websites for playing Flash games. RIP. One sort of game that they had on CartoonNetwork.com back in the day was the Mixit Video Creator. I say sort of game because, yeah, it wasn't a game. It was a software where you could make, share, and watch remixes of Cartoon Network's shows. Apparently it was launched in 2009 with several of their shows from back then, but then got a revamp in 2011, which included only their big free original shows at the time. Adventure Time, Regular Show, and Gumball, which is the incarnation I remember playing. Even on the Flash emulator I have, this version is practically unplayable. You had the option to choose from free templates, battles, story, and top 5, none of which you can properly access here. And then you could also start from scratch. But aside from the Adventure Time clips, it's all just placeholders. Watching the few videos from it that can be found on YouTube, it's about what I remember. Just a bunch of completely random clips from the shows played in succession that don't make any sense out of context. Which, since I hadn't seen much from these shows, most of the time I didn't have the context. Nor did they make for very good music videos. But that didn't mean I didn't still enjoy playing with it on a semi-regular basis. The lack of context a lot of the time just made the clips funnier and made me want to watch the shows more. There was one clip though from Adventure Time that I was always praying wouldn't show up. What the hell? As I know now, the moment comes from Season 1, Episode 22, Henchman. Basically, the plot is that Finn and Jay come across Marceline abusing her elderly henchman, and to rescue him, Finn decides to take his place. After that, it's rather formulaic. Marceline takes Finn to place after place, seemingly for nefarious purposes, only for it to turn out she was actually doing a good thing. It's not a very remarkable episode, aside from the fact that it's Marceline's second appearance, and is the transition from her being a more antagonistic character to a friend of Finn. Where does this clip come in? Basically, it's a face that Marceline pulls to scare Jake early on in the episode. It's about as random in context as it is out of context. There's actually one of a couple creepy faces she pulls in the episode. But it's the only one that I remember being included in Mixit, and yeah, I always dreaded seeing this one. Pretty mundane, just a creepy face, but I do remember at least one night where I lost sleep thinking about it. So I think it's worth mentioning. A lot of the other creepy internet internet topics I can think of, I could definitely do full videos about. Like a lot of kids, I went through a bit of a cringe, edgy, creepypasta phase, but I only ever really engaged with the ones that featured cartoon characters I was already familiar with. Like whenever people like Vale Skibum or Space Hamster would talk about cartoon and video game creepypastas. So, you know, only the least scary ones. That didn't stop me from becoming obsessed with the genre, and I even tried to come up with a couple of my own, which I can assure you were also cliche and horrible. I also definitely got into a lot of those creepy cartoon theory, mostly by watching Channel Frederator's Cartoon Conspiracy series. Again, cartoon theories and Channel Frederator are two topics I want to reserve for their own videos. A lot of these were on older cartoons that I wasn't that familiar with, and or featured mature topics that I didn't really understand at the time, so not many of these really affected me. The only ones I remember that really bothered me were the Garfield theory that he was a starving cat in an abandoned house. There was this guy and his tailspin theory, and the Pixar theory. I guess the idea of an apocalyptic event leading to human extinction was a bit too heavy for a 7-year-old to handle. And of course, there was also the My Little Pony theory, that they were all based on dead girls, though that's more of a straightforward creepypasta than an actual theory. I also used to watch The Theorizer a lot back when he made actually serious theories. He's mostly always done theories on kids' movies, and yeah, they could get kind of intense. I remember when I first found out about that Tom and Jerry cartoon where it ends with them killing themselves. It really messed with me, especially since it was a widespread misconception at the time that this was supposed to be the series finale. The idea that it was the creator's vision to end with our two beloved main characters offing themselves did not sit well with me at all. In general, the way a lot of these cartoon or listicle channels would talk about certain episodes and shows, like they are the most disturbing or heinous thing they'd ever seen, often made them seem a lot creepier than they actually were.
Some viewers may find this disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
For example, there's this video from this channel called Mind Shop called 5 Darkest Episodes of Kids Shows. And it includes stuff like the aforementioned Tom and Jerry cartoon, that one Mickey cartoon where Pluto goes to hell, and that World War II era Chicken Little cartoon that acts as a Hitler allegory and ends with everyone getting eaten alive. Number one is that one scene from Sesame Street that the YouTubers reacted to.
You are without a doubt one of the nastiest monsters I've ever seen.
Oh, spooky. Of course, I couldn't mention creepy listicle channels without mentioning Blame It on George or Jorge. Whatever. It didn't matter what he was talking about. The solemn tone of the narrators and the ambient music in the background was always enough to make me feel uneasy watching them. For some reason, Lost Media in general had this creepy aura around it back in the day. Maybe because it triggers this sense of existential dread. Another listicle channel I used to watch was Mr. Top 10 List. When compared to Blame It on George, the tone of these videos was a lot more lively and comedic. So you're probably wondering what from his videos could have possibly unnerved me. Well, while he did top 10s on a wide variety of topics, and I think is most known for his Yu-Gi-Oh! Top 10s, for some reason, I primarily remember watching his top 10s about product mascots. Stuff like the top 10 mascot redesigns, the top 10 coolest mascots, and of course, top 10 creepiest mascots, including stuff like the OG Michelin Man, Crinkles the Clown, that creepy Kinder Egg mascot, the Midas Hand, that creepy little baby's ice cream commercial, the Quiznos Spong Monkeys, the realistic Lemonhead mascot, and number one, the Burger King. There's this channel called Figma Vlogs that I only found because of Brian Hull that made vlogs about everything Disney, which I remember having a video going over the creepiest Disney park characters starring this guy, but unfortunately it doesn't exist anymore.
You know what isn't scary? YouTube poop. My favorite YouTube pooper back in the day was Jimmy Davis. He used to keep his videos family friendly. Well, he'd at least refrain from swearing or sexual references. He did not shy away from violence or drug references. Obviously, these videos were meant to be funny, and they were, but some of the dark subject matter or surreal visuals could still be a little bit too intense for a young boy. It's a good thing Rinse Cycle wasn't around when I was 8.
This isn't really an internet example, but to a young kid, Minecraft could be kind of creepy back in the day. What, with all those googlies coming out at night? Of course, being the coward I was, I almost exclusively played on peaceful mode, so that didn't really matter. But just the vastness of the world felt a bit overwhelming, which of course made it perfect for urban legends surrounding things hidden in the game. And while people are nostalgic for it now, I distinctly remember hating the Minecraft music back in the day, and preferred playing it on mute. There's this Wiggles CD parody that ends like this for some reason. And of course, there's other videos that simply don't exist anymore. I distinctly remember watching this parody trailer called Blue's Clues The Last Clue and being freaked the hell out by it. But now it's nowhere to be found. No, it's not this video.
If your hair lies lifeless and limp, one good scare ought to do ya.
For number 4, let's get out of the house and drive down to Orlando, Florida, home of Disney World. Yeah, I've been to Disney quite a few times in my lifetime. Not since COVID, though. My earliest memory of going there is when I was 3 or 4. We went to Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom, and while it was fun, for the most part, at that age, of course, a couple of the attractions are going to seem a little too intense for you. At that point, you still might not quite realize it's all fake, so you can find yourself thinking you're in real peril. I don't think my parents put me on any of the actual thrill rides, but still, not one, but 2 attractions found in the Magic Kingdom shook me quite a bit. First stop in Tomorrowland, there was Stitch's Great Escape, based on Lilo and Stitch. Well, that doesn't seem scary. Basically, us guests were recruits for the Galactic Federation, showing off their prisoner teleportation technology. You would be informed that there's a level 3 threat, and then moved to a high security chamber with shoulder restraints and everything. So clearly they're not screwing around. That probably only made me more nervous. The level 3 threat turns out to be Stitch. Yeah, he calls himself Stitch, despite the fact that's the name Lilo gave him. And there's no mention of him being an illegal experiment or Jumba in general. And in the end, he escapes not to Hawaii, but to Disney World itself. Even though we're already in Disney World. Whatever. So, yeah, it's less of an adaptation of the beginning of the first movie, and more just a non-canon experience, lifting some characters and elements from it. I can't completely speak to the quality of the experience, because I haven't experienced it since I was 3 or 4. The most I can do is watch footage of it online. But from what I see, I just don't understand who the audience was supposed to be. It seems far too juvenile to appeal to most people older than 7, but at the same time, you're strapped down and spend a large portion of the show in total darkness, with this supposed dangerous criminal running around and wreaking havoc. Which, you know, like most preschoolers, I hated the dark, so that alone was enough to make me cry. And yeah, from what I can tell, this attraction was never very popular, a big point of contention being the chili dog smell. In October 2016, it entered seasonal operation. A year later, they converted the pre-show area into a meet and greet area. And in January 2018, the show would operate for its last time. It was said to be just a temporary closure, but in October, pictures would surface of a completely dismantled Stitch animatronic. Which, hey, it might have been a cruddy show, but surely there's still somewhere or some use for that admittedly cool animatronic. That actually makes me really sad. Disney would confirm its closure in summer 2020, and surely they've got bigger plans for the space, but for now, it's abandoned. And to think I've gone this whole time without mentioning the actual biggest contention with the attraction, which is that it replaced the much more beloved attraction, Extraterrestrial Alien Encounter, where instead of being terrorized by Stitch in the dark, guests would be terrorized by a big, actually scary alien in the dark. Parents didn't like it because it was too scary for their kids. Lilo and Stitch came out and it was a rare, pretty big hit for them, which prominently featured a marketable, kid-friendly alien character. It made perfect sense in 2004. Bottom line though, had I been born earlier, I could have gotten it so much worse.
Come with me now, don't be a wimp. One little scare ought to do you some good.
What was that other attraction that shook me? Snow White's Scary Adventures in Fantasyland. Yeah, with a title like that, what could possibly go wrong? I don't think it was uncommon for people to be frightened by the movie as youngsters, so to sort of witness it in person, pretty terrifying for a little kid. And yep, I definitely cried. Though, hey, this is another case where the original version of the ride from before my time was actually much scarier, and ironically, this was before they added scary to the title. This one completely omitted any of the non-scary parts of the movie, and ended with guests getting crushed to death with a giant gem.
Aw, what a cute ending.
Yeah, once again, I lucked out. Between this and Stitch's Great Escape, it actually made me kinda scared to return to Disney. The idea of being forced to go back and confront these horrors once again. And it actually would be quite a while before I would return. By the time I did, I was ready to conquer my fears, but guess what? They replaced it with a freaking princess meet and greet. I was also afraid of the Haunted Mansion. I didn't actually go on it back in the day, but just the idea of going on it was enough to terrify me. Of course, when I actually rode it later in life, I found out that it wasn't nearly as scary as Animat made it out to be.
You're in a frickin' haunted mansion! Am I the only one here who would be scared in that situation?
When I saw commercials on the Disney Channel advertising the new Little Mermaid ride, that made me even more scared to go back to Disney. Oh, and on that same trip where I got spooked, my older sister got spooked going on Expedition Everest in Animal Kingdom. But my brother and I were too small for the ride, so we got to meet Winnie the Pooh. Ha! I still don't like most roller coasters though. And of course, I'd be remiss to talk about creepy animatronics and not mention Chuck E. Cheese and Friends. The few times I went there for classmates' birthday parties, I don't remember anyone really paying much attention to the animatronics. They just kinda sat there, in the back, ominously watching us as we ate our crappy recycled pizza.
Find our bite much worse than our bark. One good scare ought to do you some good.
Okay, here we are. Number 2. Now we're getting into the really scary shit. Viewers beware.
I can explain.
Dora the Explorer, one of the most famous kid shows out there. The adventures of a little Latina girl and her monkey sidekick going on non-parental supervised adventures, with help from their inanimate object and other animal friends, teaching us rudimentary Spanish and other basic things while encouraging the audience to yell at the screen. What about this innocent, if not slightly obnoxious preschool cartoon could have possibly troubled me so back in the day? Well, the early intro always seemed kind of eerie with how it zooms through this empty, uninhabited live-action room with the game just running on its own. But most of the terror lied in one specific character. And you're probably gonna laugh, but just hear me out.
Swiper, no swiping! Swiper, no swiping! Swiper, no swiping!
Yes, Swiper the Fox, perhaps the most infamously ineffectual villain in television history, stopped by a simple chant. He terrified me as a kid, and I still don't really know why. Maybe everything else in the show was just so innocent that anything remotely threatening seemed horrifying. Maybe it was the freaky music that would play every time he showed up, or the sense of dread that half the time he would succeed in his burglaries. Maybe it was just those beady eyes always concealed by a mask, those angry eyebrows, or those sharp teeth, juxtaposed with that shrill voice. Whatever the reason, Swiper was a regular character in my nightmares. The kind of thing where every time I thought I was safe, he'd come back with a vengeance. Yes, Swiper the Fox was my night terror. And hey, apparently Nickelodeon originally didn't want him in the show because they thought he'd be too scary for kids. So I can't be the only one, right? I think one moment in particular that fueled the nightmares was in Dora's Christmas Carol, which I used to watch all the time. When they go to the future, Swiper is a crotchety old man with a white beard, glasses, more unkempt fur, and a cane. And for whatever reason, to a little kid, old people seem kind of creepy. But what's worse is that Swiper No Swiping doesn't work anymore. So the gang has to sneak into Swiper's castle and retrieve their presents while he's sleeping. We can't wake him up, which he doesn't, but for me back then, just the possibility was unsettling enough, apparently. I think the Mad Doorline sketch also partially fed it with how the other Boots is revealed to be Swiper in a much creepier form. And guess what? Swiper No Swiping doesn't work here. Weirdly enough though, I was never actually that scared by Coraline, despite it having some very creepy imagery and ideas for kids. I think the fact that my older sister was so scared by it assured I wouldn't be that bothered by it. The normal Swiper nightmare could be described as such. I would usually be with my parents in one place or another, and then Swiper would come in and try to swipe me. Wait, that sounds wrong. He'd try to kidnap me, and unlike in the show, it was always too late. They'll never find me now. Chalk it up to separation anxiety, I guess. Occasionally, you would see one break the mold, though. Like, I vaguely remember one where I was at my grandma's house, alone, at night, and there was a Swiper doll sitting on the table because, yeah, in my room I used to have a Swiper doll for some reason. And when I touched it, it started haunting me, I guess. I don't remember all the details, I just remember all the sweat. I do remember, though, that next to it was a doll of Jim Carrey Grinch that I think I'd seen online somewhere. And yeah, that's the character I was also scared of. Well, the Grinch in general, but Jim Carrey Grinch especially. It's weird. I've seen a lot of people say Mike Myers' cat is creepier, but I was never scared of him. In fact, I loved that movie as a kid and watched it countless times, while with the Grinch, not as much. I don't know, maybe the difference is that while the Grinch was supposed to be kind of creepy, the cat wasn't, for the most part. So my young mind didn't really process him as such. But nothing, not even Swiper, can top my number one choice. The scariest moment of my childhood. And it's from a movie you probably haven't thought about since it came out, if ever.
That is quite right, I would delight in taking flight into the night. If I may give you such a fright, you know I surely would.
When it comes to other stuff from TV and movies, I feel like most of what I could mention is pretty mundane. Like jump scares, nightmare scenes, or when episodes would end all ominously, like some of the early Gravity Falls episodes. Some of them would probably seem really dumb, and some of the more interesting ones definitely deserve full videos, like the Care Bears movie, and Mickey's House of Villains, and Nickelodeon's Dead Time Stories. Does anyone remember that show? I don't remember if I actually got far enough into an episode to see anything scary, but I think it would make for an interesting video. Reminder that I have a Discord server now.
One little scare ought to do you some good.
Oz the Great and Powerful is a Wizard of Oz prequel released by Disney in 2013. That was kind of part of that weird trend in the early 2010s of gritty adaptations of children's stories, started by the smash hit of Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, which Disney themselves kind of killed off when they started making more straightforward remakes of their animated classics. It was a commercial success, but got mixed reviews and was quickly forgotten about. about. And rewatching it for this video, yeah, I can see why. It's not very good. But the quality of the movie isn't what's important to this video. What is important is that it scared the crap out of me when I saw it at age 6. So basically, when I was in the first grade, my school had this thing where every Friday they'd host movie nights in the gym. Always a double feature of kid-friendly movies. Usually one older movie and one newer movie. Though my dad would almost always be there to pick me and my siblings up before the second movie finished. And you didn't usually come for the movies anyway. You came for the food and the socialization. It's definitely one of my fonder memories from my elementary school days. You can probably see where this is going. One night, one of the movies was Oz the Great and Powerful. Don't ask me what the other movie was, I couldn't tell ya, and again, not the important part. I hadn't actually seen it before, it's not exactly something that interested me, but I was familiar with the story through the cartoons I liked, though like other kids, I was kind of freaked out by the 1939 film. But I wasn't gonna admit that, especially after my friend told his little sister she had to leave because it was too scary for her. I'm no baby. How scary could it be? It's worth noting that when rewatching it, pretty much all that jumped out at me as stuff I remembered were the scary parts. I imagine those were the only parts that actually grabbed my attention. This doesn't seem like a movie that would appeal much to most kids. There's a lot of long scenes of grown-ups talking. On his journey to kill the Wicked Witch, Oz and his friends bump into a couple of freaky CGI monsters. But that's not the part that really got to me. You see, in the movie, the Wicked Witch of the West is first shown as a good witch, who develops a crush on Oz when he arrives. But then the Witch of the East, you know, the one who gets crushed by the house, she convinces the West Witch that Oz is cheating on her with Glinda, and gives her this apple, and I guess you could say she's green with envy. Yeah, this is a pretty stupid origin story for perhaps the most famous villain in all of fiction. And Mila Kunis doesn't necessarily do the best job playing her as a convincing frat. It was still scary enough as a kid to make me cry though. Yes, in front of a bunch of other people. And I begged to be sent home.
How embarrassing.
Which I think that overreaction is enough to justify it being number 1 on this list. Though strangely, I don't recall losing sleep or having much nightmares over it. So you could argue whether it or Swiper should be number 1. Swiper definitely had the biggest long-term effect on me, while this scared me the most in the moment. But either way, these are the 2 scariest moments of my childhood. Honorable mention, I remember another time they screened Ghostbusters, and when it started to get scary, I was afraid I was gonna cry and have to call home again. But thankfully, my dad, always early, came to the rescue before it got too intense for baby Will. Like, subscribe, comment your own childhood scares down below, join my Discord server if you please. Happy Halloween, and as always, I'm the Cartoon Koala, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!